5 Texas Rangers gathered at a camp near Alice, Texas, in a record from the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum collection. For contemporaries, marksmanship defined both the gunfighter and the exhibition shooter. Although cinema exalted the speed of the draw, in a real fight, the shots that hit the target mattered. Battle of Rosebud, June 17, 1876, in Montana Territory. General George Crook's column advanced in the valley when it was ambushed by Lakota and Cheyenne warriors led by Crazy Horse. Sitting Bull inspired the coalition. The fight, with advances and retreats, stalled Crook's offensive. Bunches of Sioux, echoed. Zoe Tilman, Bill Tilman's second wife, was 26 years younger and lived until 1964. After his death at age 70, while working undercover in Cromwell, Oklahoma, in November 1924, she gathered memories, documents, and testimonies, organized archives, and published accounts. Her methodical work preserves central sources about his public and private life. If you love the Wild West and enjoy vintage pinup portraits, I've left a bonus for you in the pinned comment. A pack with 50 vintage cowgirl posters available for a limited time. Pat Garrett remains in Old West narratives, but his first wife, Juanita Martinez Garrett, almost faded away. Dead and buried in Fort Sumner in 1879, her grave marker was lost. On September 25, 2021, the Western History Association, with support from descendants, restored her memory with a new headstone at the historic cemetery. In 1919, in Miles City, Montana, 2 old acquaintances posed for a photograph: cowboy Teddy Blue Abbott and artist Charles M. Russell. They were not just friends. Russell and his wife Nancy acted as patrons and editors of Abbott's memoirs, mobilizing contacts, letters, and resources to preserve, publish, and spread frontier accounts. In 1876, in Wichita, Wyatt Earp suffered an accidental gunshot. The revolver slipped from the holster, fell on the hammer, and discharged, piercing the coat and exiting through the Customs House saloon ceiling. In 1881, in Tombstone, rival John Behan dropped his Colt. The shot nearly hit Deputy William Breckinridge, who was injured by powder grains. Founded in 1939 on the outskirts of Tucson in the Arizona desert, the old Tucson Studios complex served as a recurring location for Western films, with reconstructed frontier streets. There were filmed Gunfight at the OK Corral, 1957, Rio Bravo, 1959, and Tombstone, 1993. The image records a stagecoach scene filmed on those sets. Billy the Kid finally receives the farewell he never had, with a 144-year delay. In 1881, 170 mourners attended the discreet ceremony. In 2026, a traveling wake and an inauguration marked the turning point. The previously rejected proposal of a Texan artist was revived and turned into a tribute to the most famous outlaw in the U.S., from Texas to New Mexico. The $6 million gun that killed Billy the Kid. It wasn't his. In 1880, Sheriff Pat Garrett seized a .44 Colt from the young gunman's gang. On July 14, 1881, in Fort Sumner, he used it to kill him. Linked to the Lincoln County War, it became a symbol of the period and in 2021 fetched over $6 million at auction. On May 10, 1869, at Promontory Summit, Utah Territory, the Golden Spike ceremony marked the joining of the Union Pacific and Central Pacific Railroads. Locomotives Jupiter and number 119 faced each other. A golden spike was driven, connecting the tracks and announcing the United States Transcontinental Railroad. Benjamin Chavez and his wife Emma Pepin Chavez, daughter of Sheriff George W. Pepin from the Lincoln County War, embody opposing heritages of the conflict. Chavez commanded men alongside Billy the Kid, fought corruption, and became one of the most influential Hispanic statesmen of New Mexico, yet was relegated to historical oblivion. Billy the Kid's jailer had a shadowy past. J.W. Bell, a New Mexico lawman killed by Billy in 1881, is remembered as upright. But James Townsend found another side. Born in Maryland in 1853, Bell went to Texas and in 1870 joined in Montague County the Brown Committee that, in practice, enforced power through murder and intimidation. In 1866, Oliver Loving and Charles Goodnight opened the trail that drove cattle from Texas to the Bosque Redondo Reservation, Fort Sumner. It later extended to Denver and Cheyenne. A century later, Larry McMurtry immortalized them. Goodnight became a symbol of the West and helped save the bison. Loving, killed in 1867, gives his name to places in Texas and New Mexico and inspired Robert Duvall. Brushy Bill poses before Billy the Kid's supposed grave and tells passers-by, "They think they got me and buried me as an outlaw, but they didn't." His niece, Geneva Pittman, cites the family Bible. Roberts was born in 1879 in East Texas. Since Billy is said to have died in 1881, he would have been 2 years old, therefore just a child. Captured by C.S. Fly on March 26, 1886, the famous image shows Yonosha standing alongside Chapo, Geronimo's son, half-brother Fun, and Geronimo himself, at the border during surrender negotiations with U.S. troops. Geronimo broke the agreement and resumed the war, but exhausted, surrendered definitively in September 1886. In 1881, in the Arizona desert, Messenger Frederick Russell Burnham, 20 years old, cautiously assessed the task proposed by Neil McLeod, a tombstone figure. With the Apaches mobilizing, McLeod, smuggler and boxer, needed to send a message to partners in Sonora. Seeing him as a mentor, Burnham accepted the risky mission. Annie Oakley, sharpshooter of Buffalo Bill's show, took part in performances riding alongside and executing numbers in a side saddle. The equipment had a flat seat to ride sideways, and a thick leather-covered hook that secured the rider's leg to the horse's back, ensuring stability in the maneuvers of the traveling show. Presented at the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition in 1876, the Winchester Centennial model emerged as an evolution of the 1873. With reinforced lever action and chambered for larger cartridges, it was eventually named Model 1876. It met the frontier's demand for a repeater with greater range and terminal effect than the 1873, useful to hunters and settlers. Although Idaho is associated with potatoes, trout sustained settlers since the 19th century. Cold rivers harbored diverse species, and fishermen supplied families and commerce. Newspapers already reported on fishing. The Middle Boise Hotel in 1866 served trout. In 1884, Dick's Big Three advertised fresh stream trout, echoing notes about bites during the thaw. The most famous image of a woman in rodeos is attributed to 1915. Bonnie McCarroll, recorded by Ralph Doubleday. At the Pendleton Roundup, Oregon, she appears upside down over the saddle, hair loose, head about to touch the packed ground. The bay silver projects into the air, arched back, hooves flailing, indicating imminent fall. Recorded in 1903, the photograph captures Sundance Kid, Etta Place, and Butch Cassidy of the Wild Bunch at the Cholula Ranch, Argentine Patagonia near the Chilean border, preparing tea. Exiled after a string of robberies, they appear in a domestic moment. Sent to a relative, it remained stored for decades and only finally came to light in 1992. In 1901, Martha Calamity Jane Canary Burke posed in front of Tippis and tents, before performing with the Indian Congress at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. Born in Missouri in 1856, she went west with her family, spent her childhood in Montana's gold mines, and came of age in Utah, after her mother's death in Montana and her father's in Utah. In the expansion of the West, mining surpassed ranching and provoked clashes between bosses and miners. In 1892, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, guards killed 5 strikers. More than 100 strikebreakers were expelled. Federal troops arrested 600 without charges. The reaction led, in May 1893, to a meeting in Butte and the creation of the Western Federation of Miners. In Old West accounts, cowboys practiced roping during camp breaks. honing techniques and sometimes showing off tricks. There are oral records of men skilled with the riata, but the practice of wrapping the bedroll with the rope to ward off rattlesnakes appears as a recurring anecdote, without documentary proof. In his early years in Hollywood, Ben Johnson was hired for westerns, both for his horsemanship and his acting. In the photo, alongside Harry Carey Jr., he trains in Roman riding at Monument Valley during the filming of Rio Grande, 1950. Directed by John Ford, consolidating his role as a stuntman actor in the Fordian cycle.